God gave of himself. For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given. This was the anticipation then, 700 years before Christ ever was born. So what we're starting this next 4 weeks called Anticipating Christmas. Just a Christmas series and really kind of getting our mindset around. I mean, how many of you are anticipating Christmas already? In the room, right? Some of you are going, hold on. We just finished Thanksgiving. Let's wait for a second, please. All right? You know, how many of you have trouble starting to celebrate Christmas on November 1st before Thanksgiving? You don't like to hear Christmas music before Thanksgiving. Right? That would be me in the room. I'm good with Christmas, but I definitely love to celebrate November Thanksgiving. Anybody else okay with Christmas early? You okay with Christmas early? Some of you, no doubt. Thanksgiving gives us an opportunity to give thanks. It helps us to remind what God has done in this past year. There is a time of reflection that's necessary. But the beauty about reflection is it also gives a time for us to then anticipate what's to come. Because we go, God hadn't stopped. He hasn't stopped being God. He hasn't stopped being who he is. He hasn't stopped ministering and doing things in our lives that cause us to experience him even at greater levels, at deeper levels, knowing who he is because he loves to reveal himself. And so a time of reflection leads into a time of anticipation, but it always will again bring us back to a time of reflection. Sometimes Thanksgiving's hard because, as Kathy mentioned this morning, as Leslie mentioned about meeting this friend of hers, of those of us in the room that have experienced loss this year, in the last couple of years, it's a different kind of Thanksgiving that you've been able to express this year. It's just different. And it's not one that maybe has been easy for you. Okay? Just know that you're not alone in the midst of that. We feel that. We have that sense of sorrow, but also that sense of glory that's in it. Just as so poetically was said at Vernon's funeral, was it's not good night. It's not goodbye. It's good night. It's not goodbye. It's good night. It's the see you later. It's what's to come. And I want us to capture this morning that sense of the word anticipation. Not allowing what is all around us to distract us from the anticipation of what was prophesied concerning Christ and his celebration of his coming. For unto us. Isaiah 9:6 says, for unto us a child is born, a son is given to us. And the government will be on his shoulders, and he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. I want us to capture today the unto us of anticipation. All right? Unto us. So what are you anticipating for Christmas? Is it parties? Is it school plays? Is it parades, gift exchanges, the shopping, finding the best deals? Cyber Monday's tomorrow, Black Friday was just this past Friday. Is it family gatherings, great food, stuffed bellies, more travel, surprises? Maybe for you it's something different though this year. Maybe it's the trying of the process because of a difficult decision that you're having to make. And you need, as Isaiah said, a wonderful counselor. You have it. Maybe it's the struggle with, why am I here? What's my purpose now? And to know that you have a mighty God. Maybe for the first time in a long time, you are going through the holidays knowing that it's just going to be you and your family. Or maybe it's for the first time without a loved one. And you need God to show himself as the everlasting Father. Perhaps your thoughts have been in a waging war, in a season of uncertainty, and you need the Prince of Peace. Whatever the case may be, know that Jesus has come to us to show us himself in the midst of it all. He came at just the right time then, and he continues to come at just the right time now. He is unto us. To us, to you. Make it personal. For unto us a child is born. Literally, the phrase can actually mean a child is born for us. If you look the original Hebrew, you can pull up the phrase, not just to, but also for us. He's for you, not against you. If God is for you, who can be against you? He's for you today. He's for you. He's for us, and he's to us. Why? Because his name is Emmanuel, which means God. He's for, he's to, and he is with, y'all. Hold that. Seal that in your mind. Remember today that he's not just a God who's to or for, he's also a God who is with. We get the opportunity of anticipating Christmas on this side of the cross, knowing that his Spirit is residing in us. He's God with us. John 1:14 says Jesus came to the earth, right? He came full of grace and truth, but it says that he came as Emmanuel, God with us. He came to us. He moved into our neighborhood, right? That's the Message translation. Jesus moved into our neighborhood. God gave of himself. For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given. This was the anticipation then, 700 years before Christ ever was born. 700 years. If we were to take a glimpse in history, we would see that this was a time when the kingdoms were divided. There was the kingdom of Israel and the kingdom of Judah, the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom. Their separation had happened. There was division in the land. There were two types of folks, types of mindsets in the land. I mean, it's not unlike what we see so often, the division in the land in our country. Two thoughts, two mindsets, two separations. Division, two visions. It's tumultuous. It's intense. We can read all about it. The thing that the Lord was reminding me this week, though, is that oftentimes we look at so much at what we're seeing out there, we've been to bring it right here. We tend to operate from within as what we were seeing out there. And the truth is, oftentimes so much happening right here is so different than what we're being told is out there. Doesn't disregard what's actually happening there, but it says our experience here doesn't have to be what we're hearing is taking place out there. We can make a difference right here because who lives and resides inside of you? Knowing that people are people. Our battle is not flesh and blood. We are to pursue one another in relationship. And what has taken place so often, even in the midst of heartache, trial, struggle, loss, grief, all the things that have changed and shifted since the pandemic began almost 2 years ago. Hard to believe, 24 months going to be here for it. Wow, how did we get through this whole thing? But we don't have to allow what has been dictated to us out there to determine how we respond right here, the here and now. Who we are called to. We are called to him. We are called to one another. I love it that I can walk into a grocery store. I love it that I can walk into a store, into places that I can connect with people. I don't have to come into a place thinking that, is it possible that we're going to have a crazy thing happen right here in this place where division is going to show up and there's separation, whether it's because of my skin color or because whatever else has been contemplated about my past and who I am because of where I come from. I mean, all those things that we can bring into our forethought because this is what's being dictated in the world around us, to think a certain way based upon what we're being told. And to live this thing out in front of us, keeping those dividing lines. The world, our culture, wants us to remain in this place of division. And yet, at just the right time, God places you in a divine appointment to show that stuff can be laid aside and ministering to one another, relating to one another, loving one another, pursuing one another, having this place where we can help one another, encourage one another, forgive one another. All the one another's that we can just begin to list off all throughout the New Testament. We have an opportunity to make a great difference, anticipating what Jesus has done and what he has called us to as his people to live out today, totally counter to the culture around us. You are a difference maker. And in the kingdom of Judah, there was a difference maker who was on the throne at the time. The king was King Hezekiah. What did he come to do? He came to set things straight. He had done exactly what was good in the eyes of the Lord. You can read about Hezekiah and his kingship and the things that he did. He destroyed the things that were destroying the nation. He tore down the Asherah poles. He tore down the idols in the land. He pointed them back into right relationship with God. And in truth, the nation, in a sense, was realizing God is blessing us. Look what's happened in the northern kingdom. The Assyrians moved in. Can you imagine being in a place where you're seeing your northern brothers being taken out by a foreign northern kingdom, an army taking them out, and yet they are not touching you? There's a sense of this idea of, hey, we're being blessed. We're in the good. We're straight. You know, we're doing what's right in the eyes of God. Whatever else those mindsets might have been at the time. But what we know for a fact is that Isaiah is coming with warning. Hey, you too. Hezekiah's on the king. He's pointing these directions. But guess what? Hezekiah is going to be dead. Hezekiah ends up dying in this time. There's a sense of fear now on the land. What's going to take place? And so Isaiah is writing in BC 700, giving warning to the people. Hey, just because you think you're okay doesn't mean you're okay. You must continue to live a life that you are called to. Continue to live a life in obedience to God. And as a result of what the nation then turned against, followed right back into idolatry. Isn't that the cycle of the things that we read in the Old Testament? They come to God and then we fall away. And they come back to God and they fall away. I mean, it's this continual repeat. Ever think about that in your own life? How do I get close to God and find myself doing something stupid? We're not unlike that before. And Isaiah is speaking to a people, saying to them, there's warning here. I'm giving warning. But guess what? In the midst of warning, I'm also going to remind you there's hope. And that's who you and I are. When I say you have the ability to make a difference in the lives of people, it's because you are a people that are filled with the hope of the message of the good news of Jesus. You can hold on to hope today because you are filled with his hope today. Today's word specifically and unto us is the word hope. This is what Isaiah is trying to communicate to them in Isaiah's day in the kingdom of Judah. What he's wanting the people who were 700 years later, he doesn't know when it's going to be fulfilled exactly, but 700 years later, Christ's birth, a people in the midst of tumultuous place, a people in the midst of struggle, a people in the midst of captivity, a people who are in the midst of Roman rule, not their own leadership of their own government. What is it? It's not unlike anything that what has been experienced already in what Isaiah is writing. A people reminding them, you can be a people filled with hope. But what did I say of us today? We are a people who God is already with us because he resides in us. We are this side of the cross. And though our land may be filled with things of tumultuous times, although things may be way different than what we've experienced in our life, or maybe there's been times when you've experienced the heaviness of inflations and all kinds of things that seem to be out of whack. I know for those of you who were in the 70s, you bought houses at 17% interest rate, 20% interest rate. I can't imagine what that'd be like today in comparison. Tumultuous times where we see where there's so much unrest. There is lawlessness happening in our nation. We know that to be a fact. We know that there's two kingdoms that have been rising, that there's a kingdom of darkness that is in rise because it wants to rule and it wants to reign, and yet it can't because Jesus says right here of himself, the government rests on his shoulders. There is no end to his kingdom. He is the ruling, reigning authority. At the cross, he purchased our redemption, and at the cross, he went and he stole back, or he took back what the enemy had stolen. He had set things straight again. Every attempt of the enemy for those centuries past, Jesus paid the price and took care of it once and for all. The enemy's defeated. So as a result of the hope then and the hope that was being told about that was to come in the Christ coming unto us, a child is born, you and I are filled with hope today. We are the ones that can speak the message out of anticipating the truest reason of Christmas. You are people of hope. You can be filled and live with hope. So if we need to take a break, not from food, we need to take a break from the news, from all things that want to just impress upon your mind, I would encourage you that December 1st would be a great time to start. December 21st to December 25th, taking a break from the things that want to impress your mind and distract you from the very reason of why we are here. The very purpose of Christ's coming, the very celebration about who he is and what he has for us, because everything else that's been pressing against your mind is to keep you in a place where it seems like hope is lost. Hope is not lost. At just the right time, Christ came. And he fulfilled. He fulfilled every work that was prophesied concerning him. And it did not end there. We start Advent. Advent simply means this. It means important arrival. It means the time that is approaching, or the time that is coming. It's literally meant to be a time marked with remembrance for all God has done, but anticipation for what he's about to do. In essence, unto us is about looking forward. It's why Isaiah would write it in such a way as to, for unto us a child is born and given. It is a prophetic word. It's something that is to come. And it's a reminder for us today to look forward. Look ahead. But remember who is with you. Good news. Anticipated times of great news. That no matter what the circumstances of the culture around us, that you can live in such a way that's counter to culture, that's filled with hope, that isn't just for you personally. It is meant to explode on other people too. Unto us. The word is Immanuel. Immanuel is simply with us. El is the term God. God with us. In essence, Isaiah is saying this: I will give you a son for whose position and power will be greater than any government or kingdom or empire that you've known. And in fact, he'll be a government unto himself in which all governments rest upon. See, that's why we don't have to be captured or captivated or dictated by the culture, even the government that's in rule in our own country or governments around the world. We don't have to be dictated by whatever happens there from a political front. And in fact, we can live in such a way knowing where it rests on his shoulders, so that when Jesus says to step out in this or do that, when he says concerning your very life and the steps that you're to walk and the places you're to go and the people that you're to bless and the places that you're to remain, the stars don't have to be aligned with all the political powers in place or whatever else you want to call it. It's simply at his word. At his word is the words of hope. Hope for us, hope unto us, hope with us. Let me give you some words of hope, church. Some words that are prophetically filled. You know when Jesus said, "Why have you forsaken me?" Remember that story? Jesus on the cross? This is the picture of Golgotha, is the place of the skull. At the place of the skull is also the very place where Mount Moriah. Right there. Okay? And I've never been to Israel. I would love to go. That would be an amazing trip. I'd actually be able to see this thing come alive like nobody's business, right? I mean, to literally be in the place where Jesus said these words and you're standing there. To have better understanding and meaning of what the scriptures are referring to by what you see would be incredible. But there's a picture that we can gain when it came to when it came to Abraham. And the promise of father of many nations. The promise of Father Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, all the children of promise that would lead to us. Jesus coming from that very line, right, through the tribe of Judah all the way down to Mary and Joseph. Jesus comes from that. We are now children of promise. But when we look back at the place where it seemed, how is this going to be? When God called Abraham, he sent him out to a land he didn't know. He said, I'm going to show you when you get there, so start walking. Begin to go. At his word, he goes. He has a son, the promised son. He would come, even in old age, promise. Right? Isaac means son of laughter. We know that Sarah laughed. And then when she actually gave birth, she laughed even more because look what God had done. It's time for the boy and the father to go to Mount Moriah, where he's supposed to be sacrificed. And the very place that Isaac is to be sacrificed is also the very place where Jesus himself is going to die. Where a father takes his son and God provides a way of escape out, and the son does not have to die, but a ram is provided in the thicket, is the very place that God himself took his own son to a place in which he allowed his son to die. In the very place where we know, he says, I will never leave nor forsake. The very promise of who he is to his people, that he says that through Moses, and he says it also through Joshua. The very words, I will not leave and I will not forsake. I am God and you are my people. I will do this for my people, is the very place that God said of himself, I'll forsake my own self. The hope-filled message of the cross, the hope-filled message of the Son given to us, for us, with us, is this, that God will not leave or forsake or abandon. That's why we can continue to live today with a message of hope, with a fullness of hope, with the hope filled with inside of us of what is to come. We don't have to lay down. We don't have to stop. We don't have to quit believing. I'm speaking to myself today. I'm thinking about a year ago when my mind began to shift, and how easily it is that a world around us can dictate or cause us to begin to think of things in a different way than what the scriptures say. And I'm saying to us today to hold on to the hope that you've been given, though what life looks like right now may be very different than what you've experienced in your past. Hold on to the truth of God's word today, the hope-filled message today that he is unto us, that he's been given to you, that you are filled with the hope of Christ today in a world that may seem even darker or more intense or more tumultuous than what we can read about. It's your particular experience that you're having, that I am having today. And yet we serve the same God yesterday, today, and forever. You are not alone in it. He's with you. He's for you. He's to you. So our hope that in the processes we walk through anticipating Christmas is that we'll focus in on the true meaning and not allow the distractions of our day, the distractions of the news in which we hear, receive, see, to be something that trumps what is the truth of the hope of the message of Christ. That we can lay aside all the parties and the parades and the plays. We can put aside all the travels and all the things that we think about that we've got to do, that we've got to get done, all the presents that we've got to make sure are under the tree, all the things that need to happen. That we set those aside for a time and remind ourselves this Christmas season that life is about him. That your life is for him. That your life is also to him. And that your life is also with him. Just as he is for you, to you, and with you, you are also for, with, and to him. You belong. And that's the wonderful message of the truth of Advent, that just as Christ has come, we can come. We can come and boldly approach the throne of grace. I appreciate what Kathy shared a little bit earlier, that sometimes in our struggle, in losses, sometimes in the things that we would not have anticipated, we did not wake up that morning expecting that that evening would be an evening that Vernon would pass away. We did not expect that in a routine surgery that Ted would not come out of that surgery. We did not expect that on a weekend after a wreck on a Wednesday, on a Friday, that by Monday morning that Molly would not wake up. We would not expect that this would have been a year in which there would have been different types of folks that we loved that we would not going to be with us anymore. All that hope, Dr. Sam, of months of praying and seeing Sandy turn and then fall back into those kinds of experiences that we've had, those experiences that you have had, those types of things do impress upon our mind. It can cause us to feel that sense of, are we being forsaken? Is there a sense of abandonment? Where is God in the midst of this? And I know for a fact that there are days in which it's hard to pray. It's hard to commune. It's hard to connect. And I know 100% that in the midst of those days that the enemy wants to say the things that want to divide, the things that want to separate us. That just as a culture around us has separation and division going on, there is a real battle. That battle is a battle that is in the spirit realm that wants to separate us from our Maker, from our Creator. And the reality is that we are in a dogfight. Yeah. And that's why the reminder today of anticipating Christmas is so vital and so key concerning you, me, this church body, the church. That you are not forsaken. That you are not abandoned. God is still with you and for you and to you, and he always will be. Remember hope today. Matthew, remember hope today.